Crow's Nest has the dubious honour of being selected as the single worst Halo 3 mission in my video ranking the game's levels. Since then, I've played it a fair few times more for this video too, and because I'm obsessed with Halo honestly, and my opinion having done so isn't altogether different. But how bad is it really, and does it have any redeeming qualities? Let's find out. With Crow's Nest being the second level of Halo 3's campaign, not a whole lot has happened by the time you reach it. Master Chief has crash landed back on Earth, after which he, Sergeant Johnson and the Arbiter trekked through the Tanzanian jungle to reach an extraction point, where they were promptly ferried to the titular base. Crow's Nest begins with a few Marines getting a morale boost from Chief's presence.
Check it out. No way. A Spartan?
For real. You better not be.
Oh man, he's here. We're gonna be
Where
all
did you
right.
find him?
Napping. Out back.
I'll bet. It's good to see you, Chief.
Likewise, ma'am.
Let's get you up to speed.
The rest of the cinematic deals primarily with Lord Hood and Miranda Keyes' plan for stopping the Covenant from activating a Forerunner artifact in Kenya. The Covenant then attacks the facility, and while at first you might assume they simply want to prevent the UNSC from operating in the area, you find out later that what they're really looking for are plans detailing humanity's next move.
We have taken their command center.
Have you discovered how they plan to stop me?
Not as yet, noble prophet.
Find me what I need to know, or your place on the path is forfeit. Tell me you understand.
Yes, Holy One. It shall be done.
It's a robust-ish setup, but realistically Bungie could have cut Crow's Nest entirely. Or what would have perhaps worked even better would be for its opening cinematic to be part of Sierra 117's conclusion, with a significantly shorter version of the level bolted onto the beginning of Savo Highway, used as a narrower section before the mission widened in scope after you escaped the doomed building. As it is, I don't think Crow's Nest holds enough significance in narrative terms that it really warranted being its own thing. We must also not forget Miranda Keyes' most famous line, one which falls flatter than perhaps any other in the series.
All personnel,
They're wounded.
text code Alpha
We're getting
1,
all of them
prepare
out.
for immediate
I
evacuation.
have to carry him myself.
Ma'am, squad leaders are requesting a rally point. Where should they go?
To war.
It is dreadfully cheesy and doesn't really work, especially considering Keyes walks up the stairs, cocks her weapon as if she's about to take the fight to the Covenant herself, before she then turns round and walks back down the stairs. Also, if I'm in charge of relaying information to squad leaders out battling the Covenant, there's absolutely zero chance I'm jumping back on the radio and saying, "Lads, Miranda Keyes says you should all go to war," because it's unhelpful and quite stupid. Crow's Nest's introduction is quite lengthy, roughly 5 minutes between the cutscenes, conversations after, and the walk to its first encounter, so you'll no doubt be glad to get to some combat by the time it's all over. Before we talk about that, there's a really lovely Easter egg in this corridor. After clearing it of Covenant and walking all the way to the end, you'll find two Marines arguing about the password to a door.
Hey, open up!
Password, please!
You gotta be kidding me, what password?
The password so we don't open the door for brutes.
Do I sound like a brute to you?
Well, you could be held prisoner by brutes.
If I was held prisoner by brutes and knew the password, then the brutes could just force me to tell you the password and you'd open the door for them.
Okay, well now I'm definitely not gonna open the door.
But we need ammo!
Well, why don't you go ask your brute buddies then?
The dialogue you just heard is performed by the voices of Tucker and Doc from famed Halo web series Red vs Blue, and you can hear it on easy and normal difficulties. On heroic, the dialogue changes, as does the actors, with those who voiced Simmons and Griff taking over, and it's the same story on legendary as well, with Church and Caboose's voice actors reading. It's a clever way for Bungie to acknowledge part of Halo's wider history outside the games themselves. Right, let's talk about some actual gameplay, shall we? When you run through the different encounters on offer, they're actually reasonably varied, although I'd also argue none set the world alight. There's some corridor shooting, a holdout against waves of Covenant, a drone sequence or two, several battles with brutes. In short, there's enough variation to keep proceedings moderately interesting, even if a lot of it involves lots and lots of brutes. If you enjoy Halo 2's often close quarters combat in tight brown spaces, you'll feel especially at home too, as that's all you'll be doing for Crow's Nest's duration. The problem I personally have with its gameplay are twofold. First, it doesn't have the ebb and flow of intensity that Bungie mostly manages to imbue Halo 3's levels with. If you look at Sierra 117 prior, for example, you engage the Covenant during a few run-of-the-mill encounters before the midpoint set piece with the Pelicans, which is followed by more fairly standard battles before another larger crescendo at its end when you rescue Sergeant Johnson. Similarly, in Savo Highway After, there's the big halfway mark encounter where you hold a hill and fend off Covenant being ferried in, as well as an even more climactic vehicle sequence near its conclusion, with regular skirmishes dotted in between them. As mentioned, Crow's Nest has plenty of variety when it comes to these smaller firefights, but there are no grander, more impactful encounters in between any of them, which results in a mission which feels like it never gets out of first gear. Heading back to the ops centre, Keyes reveals her plan to destroy the base as soon as the evacuation effort is complete.
You might want to put that out. Chief, have a look. A little going-away gift for the Covenant. We've linked it to smaller charges throughout the base. Johnson, soon as the evacuation is complete, start the timer.
Understood.
Good luck, everyone. See you on the last Pelican out.
As much as I just complained about the pace never picking up anywhere near as much as I would like, what I will say is that Crow's Nest is a great early advert for how diverse an enemy brutes can be. In quick succession you fight a chieftain and his buddies, then another wielding a turret along with his friends, and finally a gaggle of regular brutes equipped with jetpacks. Getting rid of the elites as an enemy entirely and replacing them with brutes may have worried some, but I'd imagine this mission would have done a lot to put their minds at ease. It's also always great fun trying to rescue the Marines being bullied by the brutes in the barracks, and in general, the amount of Marines and brutes dotted all over the base makes Crow's Nest feel like a relatively dynamic affair. It's hardly the end of the world, but it's also worth mentioning that at one stage I did get myself in a right old muddle during the brutes with jetpack section due to one of them remaining hidden and not appearing on my radar, and that subsequently happened during 2 other playthroughs as well. It's definitely something worth looking out for if you're unable to figure out why the level won't progress. Despite most encounters being solid, if unremarkable, Crow's Nest's gameplay might also frustrate due to the amount of backtracking it asks of you. Now don't get me wrong, it is nowhere near as bad as some of the series' worst offenders. Assault on the Control Room and its circular rooms is always my go-to example, but you will spend a good amount of time traversing the facility's halls in between bursts of activity. The idea behind it makes sense. The base is being actively attacked, and so you would need to travel back and forwards across it to repel the Covenant hordes, but that doesn't make it entertaining in practice. Also, the environments themselves are all brown and yellow and not very aesthetically pleasing, which adds to the monotony. In essence, they're more filler, and they are also part of a mission which itself feels like filler when looking at Halo 3's wider campaign. I always like to spend a minute or two talking about most levels' soundtracks as well, because when it comes to Halo, they are just as big a part of the experience as gameplay, graphics, or anything else. Crow's Nest isn't the most thrilling in this regard, but the tunes chosen fit well with the mission's context, especially the drum-focused, militarily themed numbers towards its beginning, such as Last of the Brave. One massive highlight is Dream Again, a variation of Under Cover of Night, which plays towards the end of the level and is playing in the background this very moment. It's an absolute cracker, which unfortunately can at times be a tad difficult to hear against all the action, although to be fair, it is something of an isolated issue that isn't prevalent elsewhere, and so I think I can forgive Bungie on this occasion. One final note as we near the end of Crow's Nest. I rather like the lights turning on and off as the base begins to fall apart. Some will find it irritating, I'm sure, and it doesn't really affect gameplay, but a section with more prolonged spurts of darkness is an interesting twist I'd have liked to have seen developed further. To complete the level, you hop on an elevator as Master Chief narrowly avoids the bomb exploding above him. Cortana then chimes in, which is no great surprise. You might be shocked to hear that there are 6, yes 6, of these slow motion disasters scattered throughout Crow's Nest. I'm certain this is the most out of any of Halo 3's missions, other than Cortana of course.
This place will become your home. This place will become your tomb.
Honestly, now that I've finished writing this script and having played a lot of Halo 3 recently, I feel like I may need to revisit my level rankings at some point in the future, as there's nothing offensively bad in Crow's Nest like there is in, say, Cortana. If you're someone who enjoys Halo 2's style of combat in particular, which often took place in close quarters, you'll likely take to this one like a duck to water, but even then, the backtracking and lack of any real spark will still likely be evident. If Halo 3 was as long as Halo 2, then Crow's Nest would be less of a bugbear for me, as there'd still be plenty of time elsewhere to get through the rest of the story. As it is, it's a mission which treads water and adds little to the trilogy's narrative, and because of that, it's an experience I don't ever mind playing through, but equally am never in any rush to revisit. Thanks for watching the video, boys, girls and Spartans. If you had a brutally good time, do consider liking, subscribing and sharing your thoughts, and here's hoping we'll catch up again soon.